Like, why would I get married if it's just
Why would
gonna
I
fall
bother?
apart?
Yeah, if every picture of marriage that I've seen most close to me hasn't looked beautiful. And I don't think that the best thing for our generation, so for like Gen Z, millennials, is to go, I'm not gonna get married because of blank, because of this failed marriage or this failed marriage or this failed marriage. But instead being like, okay, what can I learn from these mistakes that I've seen in my life played out in marriages in a way that could be redemptive and make for a better marriage for me. Today we're going to be talking about the key reason why we think people aren't getting married in 2024.
So we've heard this reoccurring theme come up from a lot of people we know. This is just anecdotal evidence, not like based on research or anything.
But there is probably research that supports this.
Yeah.
And the reason is because most people have seen or grown up with failed marriages. And so it's almost developed this like apprehension, this nervousness, this caution surrounding marriage.
It's like, why would I get married if it's just
Why would
gonna
I
fall
bother?
apart?
Yeah, if every picture of marriage that I've seen most close to me hasn't looked beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think that something that we have to realize is that the marriages that we've seen in our past don't define our future. Like, we're a different person.
Yeah.
And similar to
And
how...
marrying a different person.
And marrying a different person.
Yeah.
And similar to how we can go out on the street and see people who have made mistakes and almost derive motivation and inspiration from those negative examples. I think marriage can be a similar thing. Like, how many stories have you heard of where men grow up to be great dads because they had a negative dad and that was used as fuel to redeem fatherhood and what it means to be a husband?
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I think that it's sad. I remember one time we were in line for a restaurant or something and talking to this couple in front of us, and they were really cute. They were pretty young. I feel like they were like 17 or 18, and they'd been dating for maybe like a year, and then Daniel goes, so do you guys think you're gonna get married? And their reaction was like, whoa, 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 whoa.
And I was kind of trolling. I was just trying to throw, they were really young.
He was just trying to throw them a curveball to see how they reacted.
But then their response was like so extreme. I kind of dug in and I was like, oh, like
why are you so against marriage?
Yeah, why are you so against marriage?
Yeah.
Just curious. And what did they say again?
They answered, because our parents got divorced. I wouldn't want to get married. And I was like, wow.
And here's the thing, like, I've never spoken to someone who's gotten a divorce, who was in a broken relationship, that said, oh, we did all the right things. Like, we invested time into the relationship. We dealt with our individual baggage and our collective baggage. We went out and prioritized date nights. We listened to each other empathetically. And then we got a divorce. Most of the time people are saying like, oh no, we didn't do it the right way.
Yeah.
And they can kind of list, like, these are all the things that we wish we would have done differently.
Signs. Yeah.
And so it's almost like a lot of people who I talk to, even like our parents or family members, will say like, let our ceiling be your floor. And I don't think that the best thing for our generation, so for like Gen Z, millennials, is to go, I'm not going to get married because of blank. Because of this failed marriage or this failed marriage or this failed marriage. But instead being like, okay, what can I learn from these mistakes that I've seen in my life played out in marriages in a way that could be redemptive and make for a better marriage for me?
And you think when people say they don't want to get married, do you think they're saying like, I don't want the piece of paper? Or are they saying like, I don't want a long-term serious relationship with someone? Like, where do you think people are coming
it's this
from
interesting thing as well, where it's like, I think they're saying the official relationship that is marriage as
like an institution,
as proven by the piece of paper, and as like verified by the symbol of the paper, but also the symbol of the ring and the title of like husband and wife. Like, I think people want to like break free of the institution, and obviously there's more factors that play into people not wanting that, but I think this like the failed relationships that they've seen is a huge part of that. Because
I guess I'm curious, because I feel like if let's say you're in a relationship with someone for like 20 years, you have kids, the whole thing, you have a house together maybe, but you never get married, but then you split up, wouldn't the resounding like pain both for yourself
Yeah.
personally and your children and everyone
Yeah.
around you be the same.
It'd be just as hard.
Yeah.
And I think the irony of it, where we live, if you're living with someone for more than 18 months to 2 years, you're considered married in the eyes of the law.
Of the government, yeah.
And so it's this funny thing where people say like, I don't want to get married, I just want to live with the person. But it's like, oh, if you split up, there'll be just the same ramifications as if you were
yeah, like
married.
financially and with your taxes and all
Yeah.
that. Yeah, that's interesting.
There was a moment when I was younger, so probably like late teens or early 20s, when I realized, like, I remember my parents being super hard on me. I remember my dad was always hard on me about being a man of character, being a man of integrity, and making sure that I was living a life that was exemplary to my brothers, to those around me, to other family members. And there was this really clear moment where I'm like, why does it feel like you set a higher bar for me than for yourself? And it wasn't in like a shady way. It was more like, I guess, a moment of realization for me where I'm like, oh, my dad doesn't want me to be him.
Yeah.
He wants me to be better than him.
Yeah.
And it was this like impactful moment where I'm like, oh, I see what he's been doing all along. He's been trying to, again, make his ceiling my floor. And I think that when we like look at our parents as not like worse versions of ourselves, but as the
Like starting point.
and
Yeah.
like a launching pad,
Yeah.
we view our life in light of them a bit more optimistically, because we say like, oh, I'm not going to be defined by their failures, but I'm going to use their failures as an opportunity or as a door to step through into like my success. And I think it's just like, it helps us write even the story of our family in a more redemptive light, when we're able to say like, okay, my parents learned from the mistakes of their parents and they turned out relatively well. And then if I'm able to learn from their mistakes and improve upon that, and then my kids learn from my mistakes and improve upon that, slowly but surely your family's becoming more and more beautiful as we learn from each other's mess.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, like, if you're gaining or if you're pursuing wisdom at every point of your relationship. So when you're like dating someone, when you decide to get engaged, when you decide to marry that person, you need wisdom through all of that to ensure like, is this the right person you want to spend the rest of your life with? And then also wisdom throughout like all the ups and downs that marriage can bring or life can bring that affects your marriage. And when you're intentional about how you approach the relationship, like then it's in your hands. Like, I don't see why a relationship, I guess you have to partner with the person in that, though.
Yeah.
It's not in your hands if then all of a sudden the person you chose to spend the rest of your life with is not on the same page as you anymore. Then that would be challenging. But I would say, like, an encouragement is, like, you aren't set up for failure by your parents just because they got divorced. But you can take that into your own hands and use wisdom and intentionality in your relationship to try to make sure that it's one that thrives and one that is successful.
Yeah. And I think most of the people who are like inspiring in life, like, don't let their circumstances or family dynamics or histories define their odds at success themselves. So sometimes we're inspired by stories where someone's the first person in their family to go to college.
Yeah.
Or the first person in their family to do professional sports.
Yeah.
And there's failed academics behind them, like in their family history. There's failed athletes behind them in their family history. But we're inspired by the fact that they defied the odds and got that college degree or got that scholarship. So it's just kind of like this reminder of like, no, the things that inspire us most are people who defy what their life should have become. Or what their relationship should have become. Or it's like, my dad was an alcoholic, not me, but as an example, and I didn't become one. And so I would want to encourage people out there, like, just because you've seen failed marriages in the past doesn't mean that there isn't a successful marriage that awaits you. And so, yes, it's important to be critical of institutions that are traditional, that aren't traditional. It's important to push back against societal norms and question, but also be critical of your criticism and the spirit from which your criticism is coming from.
Yeah.
And it's so important to identify the vulnerabilities that are held even within our own presuppositions as well. So
yeah, I think too, like, I just want to acknowledge, like, there is a lot of pain that can be associated with marriage and divorce. And it doesn't mean, we don't mean just like completely ignore all that and be like, yeah, I'm going to kill marriage. But be like so aware of that and how you can heal from your experiences and grow from them. And then go from that healed place to have a healthy marriage. Does that make sense?
I think that makes total sense. It's like when you're trying to start new vegetation in your garden.
Yeah.
It's like you can't just start planting new seeds. You have to pull the weeds out first.
Yeah.
Cultivate the soil, plant the roses, and then they grow. So it's just like there's going to be a point where people have to stop and say like, okay, what unhealthy practices did I adapt from those people that were in those unhealthy marriages?
Yeah.
What baggage am I carrying just because I've seen those?
Yeah.
Let me deal with those things first and then be set on this path of growing healthy relationships and ultimately like a healthy marriage.
Yeah,
so,
that's good.
That's all for today.
Thanks so much for watching. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe and also share this video with someone you think might like it. But with that, we'll see you guys next week.
See you next week.